Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ajua. It's yet another one of my similar but better series where I compare two or more fragrances that smell identical and let you know which of them in my opinion is a better alternative. In this particular video, I've already featured some of these fragrances in previous similar videos, but there are new additions. In the case of Hair Confessions by Lattafa, for example, I've already compared it to Lactea Divina from Paris Corner, where I mentioned that Lactea is my personal preference, although Hair Confessions is a better dupe. I feel like this one comes across as much more milky, a little more fluffy, and I like the texture, how it comes across and being a lot more milky and slightly lighter. But they are both good interpretations of Blanch base, but I think the most perfect dupe between these two is going to be Hair Confessions. I have come across another one from Paris Corner known as Grecia, and this is their interpretation of Blanch bed. And the bottle, this is just a decant, but the bottle to me is the prettiest of them all. I think of the three, Lactea Divina, Hair Confessions, and Grecia from Paris, this is my personal preference in terms of the bottle. Scent-wise, I would say stick to those two. You know, if you have those two, Lactea Divina and Hair Confessions, you might want to stick to them because although this is going to give you Blanch beds from the first 30 minutes, 1 hour, I don't like the dry down. The dry down, it's not as, potent. It's not as milky. It feels a little dry, in my opinion. There's something that feels slightly more dry, whereas the other two comes across as much more fluffy. The beginning is going to give you exact same feel, creamy texture, creamy, fluffy, but it's not as milky, and it's the least long-lasting one. It is the worst performing one amongst the three that I have in my collection now, or I have tried them. So in my opinion, I would say stick to the previous two if you have any of them. This looks beautiful, but scent-wise, the first 30 minutes, 1 hour is going to give you Blanch bed-esque vibe, but it feels dry. It's not as creamy and as vanillic and as milky as I find in the other two that I have already mentioned in previous videos. So yeah, it's good, but it's not as great as those two fragrances. So that is going to be my preference. My personal preference is still going to be Lactea Divina over Hair Confessions, although Hair Confessions is a better, most accurate dupe, and Grecia will give you a good interpretation of Blanch bed from the beginning, but a dry down, it's not as milky, and it feels dry, it's not as fluffy, and it's not long lasting. It's not long lasting. So yeah, I mean, if you have those previous two, stick to them. When it comes to Amore Cafe, the only dupe I have a full-size bottle of is going to be from Khadlaj Cafe Latte, and I think it is a phenomenal job. It is a very perfect dupe, near perfection, 1-to-1, very milky, creamy, coffee, it has the notes of coffee, ice cream, vanilla, the milk, and the what's not. And I've also come across Al Absas Shahoor Intense, and to me, I think Shahoor Intense is also a good interpretation of Amore Cafe. I like the opening. It behaves similarly as Cafe Latte from Khadlaj. It's not as milky creamy. I don't find it as milky creamy as I find Cafe Latte, but I think they did well. The attempt is good. I wouldn't say attempt, they did well, but I still feel like Cafe Latte is the one for me. It gives me a near perfect dupe of Amore Cafe with the same ice cream, vanilla, coffee feel. It is much more creamy. I get a caramel a lot more intense in this one. This one is good, but there's something about the one from Khadlaj that I feel is almost a near perfect dupe. On the other hand, when it comes to longevity, I think Shahoor Intense is the least performer. It doesn't give me the performance as much as I find in Cafe Latte. This is going to give you at least 4 hours on skin and the whole day on clothes, depending on the number of sprays you do. This will give you about 2 hours on skin and around the 6 hour on clothes. Not necessarily the best projector. This one projects slightly better in my opinion, but I think it is a good dupe. They did a phenomenal job, but I feel it's still lacking that creaminess and a little bit of that caramel vibe I find in Cafe Latte. So for that matter, I'm still going to stick with my Cafe Latte. It's still a very beautiful scent, and this is equally a good one, but not comparable in scent in terms of the first 1, 2, 3 hours, after which you can clearly see that this one is the the winner, because it's projects a lot more, it lasts a lot longer as compared to Shahoor Intense by Al Absar. That is my first brush with the house, and I think it's good, it's good, but Cafe Latte from Khadlaj is better in my opinion. Similarly, I have also compared Delicious Bouquet from Afnan to other Victoria, Valor, Flora. I've compared it to a lot of devotion dupes, but I have recently picked Shouq Le Falcon Shouq or Shouq. That is the name of the fragrance. The bottle is pretty, and this is going to be my first thing I'm trying from the brand Le Falcon, and I think they did a good job. In my opinion, these two fragrances are among the best dupes of Devotion by D&G. I think both are phenomenal. In my previous comparison, I crowned Delicious Bouquet by Afnan as the better or the best, but it's still good, and this is equally good. I just feel like both are going to give you the same devotion vibe, but in the case of Shouq or Shouq, it comes across as much more lemony. I get that lemon zest a lot more. Let's say this one is lemon forward, especially at the beginning, and this one gives you the lemon vanilla. It dries down, Delicious Bouquet dries down with the heavy vanilla, whereas this one dries down to a bit of the more citrus, the lemon. The lemon is much more pronounced at the beginning, and that is the main significant difference I find between these two. I love how they both interpret. They are still going to remind you of the same devotion, but this is lemon zesty forward, like candied lemon forward, whereas even though you find the lemon in Delicious Bouquet, it's much more vanillic than this, especially at the opening. But the dry down is very similar, but you still have that lemon vibe a lot more stronger in Shouq than Delicious Bouquet. My personal preference between these two, my personal preference is going to be this one. I feel like this one feels a lot more wearable with the lemon. It feels like you can wear it year round, whereas in this one, I would even say it is much more towards the colder weather, although you can wear whatever you want at any particular time. But this one feels a lot more vanilla, just like the Devotion. You are still going to get that Devotion vanilla, cakey thing in Shouq, but it feels a lot more airy, a lot more zesty, and that lemon, I like how the lemon interprets in this one a lot better, and it makes it much more everyday, like everyday wearable than the original Devotion and even this one, Delicious Delight. They are both beautiful interpretations of Devotion, but I think even in addition to Devotion, which I have, my preference is going to be the one from Le Falcon. I think I like how the lemon zest, the candied lemon is done in this one, making it a lot more wearable, a lot more lighter, take on the Devotion DNA. So that is going to be my take. If you want a one-to-one, I think it's still going to be this one. But if you want with a twist, if you want something much more summery, you might want to go with Le Falcon, which has more of the candied lemon zesty vibe. But it's still going to dry down to the beautiful vanilla you find in Devotion. So yeah, maybe you can wear this one for morning, and then you can top it up. You can top this one up in the evening to get a more intense vanillic vibe. So that is going to be my comparison when it comes to these two. There are others that have already compared to this, but I think these two really are exceptional. They are good. The others are also good, but I think these two are good interpretations of Devotion by D&G. Moatter Dhahab by Junaid is a fragrance I've always wanted to try. It's not the most spoken about fragrance. I think it's had its days. It's one of those older Arabian, fragrances, Moatter Dhahab, and it's a very beautiful one. It has some gold thing, when you spray it on, your skin shines, that sort of gold glitter effect. It is beautiful, the bottle and everything is pretty. And this, I got a decant not too long ago, just wanted to try because I was curious, and I think my curiosity is satisfied. I like this one, but I know another one that smells very identical to Moatter Dhahab, and that is going to be from the Ministry of Oud, Goliath's Oath, yes, by Paris Corner. When I sprayed this one, it immediately reminded me of Goliath Oath by Paris Corner. It gives off the same vanilla spice. This one has just 3 notes. I think it has rose, musk, and vanilla. But there's something a little spice. There's something more spicy than the note structure. The note structure doesn't indicate anything spice or pepper, but there's some very noticeable spice, and that is this exact same spice I find in Goliath Oat, which has I think cardamom, and some cinnamon. This is super spicy. Even between the two, I think Goliath Oat is still the spicy one, but this one also has the same vanilla and the same spice. This has been compared to Goldfield and Bank's Silky Woods, and that is a fragrance I have not come across. However, it gives me the same feel as something like Parfum de Malice Altair with the vanilla and the spice. It gives me that vibe with a bit of tobacco, nuances. In this instance, I don't get tobacco, but it gives me that same vanilla, that same spice. They smell very identical, especially at a dry down. Goliath's Oat is going to come across as much more intense, especially in the department of the spice. It's much more intense, whereas this one feels a lot more calmer and a lot more cooler. It feels the same vibe, the same. They're about 90% similar in my opinion, to the extent that if you have Goliath's Oath, I don't think you need Moatter Dhahab, or if you ever came across Moatter Dhahab, you don't need Goliath's Oath. This is the newest one, or one of the newest fragrances, but it has been around for ages. They are all in that vanilla, Casablanca, Ebhar sort of vibe, but they are much more spicier than that. The normal Casablanca is going to give you your apple, caramel, leather sort of thing, but these ones come across as a little more spicy. So in my opinion, Goliath's Oath and Moatter Dhahab are very similar, very similar smelling, with the same vanilla, the same spices, yeah. And that is going to be my take on these two fragrances. Speaking about Ebhar from Rasasi in comparison to Goliath's Oath and the other ones, they are sort of in the same family, but this one lacks the spice. However, Paris Corner is out with Zahi, and I've already given my detailed review in one of my previous videos when it comes to Zahi. And to me, Zahi is very comparable to Rasasi's Ebhar. They are very similar, very smooth vanilla, vanilla caramel, and then apple. Both have apple, but I think Zahi has a note of pear, which slightly distinguishes it from Ebhar. However, the beginning, the middle, the dry down are very similar, to the extent that if you have one, you might not want the other, or you might not need the other. The only significance, I wouldn't say significance, but the only major difference I find between these two is the fact that Ebhar comes across as a little more intense, whereas this one feels like, let's say, the EDT of Ebhar, the EDT of Ebhar. And that is to say it is not a good performer. It is good. It smells, very accurate to this, but it feels like slightly tamed, especially in the vanilla department. The vanilla here feels slightly more stronger, but the dry down is going to give you 95% similarity. They are so similar. You don't necessarily need both. They're going to give you that Ebhar vibe with the, a very creamy, smooth vanilla. I like how the vanilla in this one and Zahi interprets. They are very smooth and well blended as compared to something like Casablanca. You can compare this one to Casablanca Estrate, for example. How perfectly the vanilla is done in Casablanca Estrate. That is the same way the vanilla in these two are perfectly blended. But if you have Rasasi's Ebhar, it smells very identical to Zahi, one of the latest releases from Paris Corner. They are very identical. I don't think you need both of them in your collection. You can have one and forgo the other. You might want to go with the cheaper one around you, or the most accessible one around you. So that is going to be my take on Rasasi's Ebhar and then Zahi from Paris Corner. I am personally still struggling with my bottle of Veneno Blanc. I feel like I got it for the bottle, but scent wise I prefer Mashubaya from Lattafa. I got this decant first, but and fell in love with it, and when I saw that Veneno from Effie Paris was coming out, I decided to wait for the bottle because I just wanted this bottle. It looks like very sexy to me and artsy, and it was sort of an instant regret as soon as I sprayed it. Over the last couple of weeks, I think it is blending in, but it's still not as perfect as Mashubaya to me. I feel like Mashubaya feels a lot more better, well blended. It is much more refined. You know, it feels a lot more refined and smoother as compared to this. Although this one is like slightly new, maybe almost 3 to 4 weeks now. It's taking a lot more time to sit and mature or maturate. But I think this Mashubaya is a better alternative. Price point wise, it is much more, you know, less expensive than this. It feels a lot more smoother, well blended. I like the shisha accord, you know, in this one as compared to the shisha accord in this. This one feels a lot more smoky, and the smoke is not giving me a shisha necessarily. It has, you know, no essence of a shisha accord, but this is a perfect shisha, apple shisha accord. I'm not sure I like the apple in this one as well. You know, the apple in this one feels a lot more tolerable. Not tolerable, the apple in this one feels a lot more better than the apple in Veneno Black. So in this instance, I'm still going to maintain that Mashubaya from Lattafa is a better alternative, unless I let it sit for a few more months. Maybe it has to sit for a few more months, but right out the bottle, it didn't smell as smooth to me in comparison to the one from Lattafa. So in this instance, I'm still going to maintain the one from Lattafa as a better alternative. It feels much more smoother. I have not tried the original one from Kilian Smoking Hot, so I'll not be able to say which is the better dupe. But scent wise, this one feels a lot more smoother, a lot more silky, a lot more better as compared to this, which I feel needs a lot more time, you know. But I like the shisha accord in this a lot more, and the apple, you know, and the tobacco. It interprets beautifully in this one, whereas in this one, I'm still sort of struggling, although I think it's a little better than when I initially got it. And the last pair I have are going to be Voux Zingy by Paris Corner. I'm going to compare that with Aromatics or FA Paris Plantine Blanc. That is one of the latest released from Aromatics. His collaboration with FA Paris. I think both are very good fragrances. These two have been compared to Zejov's Torino 21, and that is a fragrance I have not, you know, put my nose on. But it's also been compared to M. Michelev's Gin Tonic that I have a sample here. I wouldn't say they give me Gin Tonic through and through. Probably they are more to the Torino side, although I've not smelled it, but in the same family as Gin Tonic by M. Michelev. In this instance, they smell like very identical. These two fragrances, you know, Plantine Black and then Voux Zingy, they smell like 99% identical. The only thing I find different between the two is the fact that the one from Aromatics feels slightly more spicy. This one has a note of mint and this one has a note of basil. Same difference, you know, but it comes across as slightly more minty, you know, the same citron, lemon, lime, bergamot, that same fresh, clean, you know, crisp gin tonic vibe. That is the same thing I find between these two. I think they are almost the same. You don't need both of these fragrances. If you already picked up Voux Zingy when it came out, you don't necessarily need this one, you know. Yeah, you don't need it because they smell very identical. With this one having that mint, the mint shines slightly more brighter in this one, whereas this one has a note of basil, you know, practically the same thing, but slightly more aromatic, slightly more spicy, and this one feels slightly more fresher. But they are the same family, and even between these two, I would say go for the much affordable option around you. Yeah, go for the much affordable option around you because it's the same experience, the same fragrance, the same thing, you know. And when it comes to M. Michelev's Gin Tonic, I think it is going to be, of these three, it is going to be my least favorite as compared to this. It feels a little, in comparison to these two, it feels a little flat and boring and a little more musky. There's something musky, I wouldn't say floral, but there's something about this that I don't find in these two. And that particular thing, which for the lack of better words, I would say muskiness, is missing in these two, and it makes these two better in my opinion. So yeah, in the case of these two, go for the cheaper alternative around you. And that is going to be it for my comparison video for today, and I hope this video found you all. Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in my next one. Take care. Bye bye.